I have now the pleasure to invite Professor Jan Bartáček from the University of Chemistry and Technology in Prague, and he's going to present about the developments and constraints in greywater reuse in Czechia. Professor Bartáček, Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you for introduction. I will share my screen now. Now you should be able to see my presentation. Is that the case?
Yes, we can see.
Maybe one question: do you see also the mouse, the cursor?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
We can follow the.
Okay, so my presentation today is on the greywater reuse in Czechia, really focused on Czechia. As I was asked to give this presentation, to introduce myself, I'm from the Department of Water Technology and Environmental Engineering from the University of Chemistry and Technology, Prague. And I'm the head of the group of anaerobic biotechnology. What we do in the group is mainly resource recovery from wastewater. We look at water reuse, their greywater reuse mainly, but also energy recovery, materials recovery, and information recovery. Actually, that's something that is part of that is taking most of my time nowadays, because we quite intensely follow coronavirus in wastewater in Prague, and actually as the authorities started to cooperate with us, we are rather busy with that topic. But indeed, greywater reuse is still a very important topic for us. Why we focus on that so much is that if you look at the total picture in the Czech Republic, if you look at the withdrawals of water sources, then this is the history from 1990s to more or less the current situation, when all the consumption went lower by the factor of 2 almost since the 90s. But still, the main consumption of water is in electricity supply. But then the second main consumption is actually public water supply. If you look, for instance, at the agriculture, we use only 4%, at least officially withdrawn water for agriculture. Only fraction of that is irrigation. So if you want to do some important action in water savings, indeed you start with the larger parts of the cakes, and then if we look still more closely to the public water supply, then you see that over 50% is consumed by households. About 25% are other users in the Czech Republic, indeed. And then I see there is some problem with visualization in my picture, but anyhow, I will comment on the different shares in the water use in households. So far, the largest is the use in baths, in showers and bathtubs and so on. And then also large amount is used for washing the clothes. So washing machines. Very minor parts are used for cooking and drinking and so on. And then about 23%, I'm sorry for the visualization here, but only 23% on average, these are Prague data, is used for flushing toilets. So if you recalculate this part of flushing toilets, 1/4 of household use, to the total withdrawals, it's about 5% of the total withdrawal in the Czech Republic. So it's even far more than what is used for irrigation in Czech. So if you want to reuse some water, then the best is to use for, at least to start, is best to start with flushing, because then you can save more than what you save, for instance, in irrigation. It's a very low-hanging fruit, because you don't need to look that much at the quality of the flashing water, at least in terms of discharge limits or something like that. So what is greywater? I think most of the people know nowadays. So that's exactly the water which is produced in bathtubs and sometimes washing machines. And where that water can use, I'm really sorry for the visualization here, but it's mainly for flushing toilets in the household and washing machines. Other uses like for showering and so on, it's problematic indeed. Also, it is possible to use it, for instance, for watering the plants and so on. But then what is interesting and what is nice, that the production of greywater always match with the possible use of treated or reused water or treated water in the households. In the households, we have always more greywater available than what we can normally use for flushing and washing clothes. But it's always a sort of close balance. So why we look at the greywater reuse? First of all, it's a large portion of the total water use in Czech, and then it can be easily used in the point of production without any transport, and it's really a large portion, at least potentially. So at the moment in Czechia, we have some systems in family houses applied. There is no official list of these systems, or we don't know exactly how many are applied already, but we know that about 60 projects have been supported by EU funds in the program which is called Dešťovka, which means basically rainwater. It's mainly focused on rainwater use, but also greywater systems are supported there. Then the problem, and I will talk about it much more, outdoor use of greywater is illegal. In any case, so you can, even if you treat your greywater in your family house, you cannot use it for irrigation of your garden, for instance. At least legally, you cannot do that. Then we know there are several large systems installed in apartment buildings. I will also comment on those. There are also some in hotels and administrative buildings. Unfortunately, there is no system evidence or how do you call it, control from the state authority. So we don't really know how many and where all these systems are. We know here and there, but we don't know exactly the total picture right now. Now, my presentation will be mainly based on a study that we were invited to do for the Czech Ministry of the Environment last year. And they basically asked us to do the study which would review the situation worldwide, that would review the situation in the Czech Republic from the point of view of technical solutions and legislation, and to suggest the steps that Czech Republic should take to support this field. And they also asked for parameters for the systems that they should support by governmental or EU-funded funds. Now, indeed the study is in Czech, so I can only recommend it to Czech colleagues, not to our international colleagues. But basically, the content was a review of the state worldwide, review of the field in the Czech Republic, the definition of required actions, description of typical solutions that can be applied, basic requirements for governmental support, and also water saving potential for the whole Czech Republic. So we call it absorption capacity. I will quickly go through the reviews. We reviewed over 30 relevant standards worldwide, legal or technical, all around the board. I cannot go into detail. It's a really large amount of information which is collected there, but in principle, indeed, the standards are very variable. What is, however, the common emphasis for all of those that are well done is the emphasis on the risk assessment, concrete risk assessment for the concrete situation, so the object where greywater is produced, and also where the consumption, the type of use of the treated water. So this is something that is already incorporated in Czech legislation, for instance, for drinking water supply, and we strongly suggest that this should be part of legislation also for the for greywater reuse. And for the technical solutions, of course, there are a huge number of technical solutions. In principle, you can find whatever techniques related to wastewater or water treatment. In principle, we can end up with distilled water if we want. So, of course, there are technical solutions available, but there are also technical solutions which are affordable for greywater reuse. And we clearly demonstrated that almost any type of buildings, from family houses to airports, for instance, can be equipped with greywater reuse. Indeed, the water produced can be of a good quality if you design the system well and if you operate it well, actually. What is a problem in view of, for instance, technologists or investors in the Czech Republic, that the data on, for instance, water use, water consumption are very different worldwide, and we don't really have a good basis on the information basis where we would found the information of typical consumption in, for instance, administration buildings or office buildings or commercial centers in the Czech Republic or in hotels. So this is information that still should be better collected in the Czech Republic for the investors to be able to design, or not only the investors, also suppliers, of course, to design sufficient volumes, for instance, and sufficient technologies for these atypical buildings. As for the Czech Republic, we reviewed strategic documents, so to see whether the government actually wants to support the field in the Czech Republic. Indeed, there is a declarative but strong support to water reuse in general, and specifically to greywater. But the problem is that this is not really mirrored in real legislation, in real acts and water standards and so on. I will talk about it still more in detail later. Then, as for technical standards, we can use all sorts of standards from all around the world, and there are very good ones. In Czech, we have now adopted the EU standard on-site non-potable water systems and Part 2 systems for the use of treated greywater. So technically, there is no problem to design nowadays good systems, well operating systems, and people or the suppliers also are able already. We have cases of good practice here in the Czech Republic, so this is definitely possible nowadays. The main problem, I would say, in the Czech Republic is the legislation in this respect. In the study that I presented, we went really into detail in this field. So you have to look there, but here I just stress the most important ones. So first of all, there is this Act number 254, which is, I don't know the correct English translation, but it's water protection related law, basically. And as for water reuse, there is declarative support to water reuse, but nothing really practical. And actually, it is very hard to somehow get compliant with this specific law if you want to reuse wastewater. Most importantly, I would say it is technically impossible to use reused wastewater, for instance, for irrigation. There are a number of reasons. First of all, irrigation is seen by Czech authorities as discharge to groundwater body, which is one of the only three possibilities what you can do actually with wastewater nowadays in Czech. You can either discharge it to surface water or to groundwater or to transport it to wastewater treatment plant. Simply said, let's say. If you see irrigation as dumping to groundwater, you can only do it when other possibilities are not technically possible. And you can only do it if you have up to 15 cubic meters per day, which is most often okay for greywater reuse, but you may have some buildings where this is not enough. And also, if you want to irrigate, you would probably want to kind of protect public health, because there will be aerosols produced with pathogens possibly. But if you, this is absolutely not foreseen by the law for groundwater discharging or wastewater discharge to groundwater. So there is nothing about Legionella, for instance, or other pathogens which may occur in wastewater. So this is a big problem from our point of view. Then there is a public health protection law, which actually from the coming February will effectively introduce the terms of greywater reuse and process water and so on. But the problem is that there is clear contradiction to the water protective law, which I introduced a slide before. So there is a very strong inconsistency in different laws that should concern somehow greywater reuse. So this is a problem that needs to be seen and needs to be repaired, I would say. Then other problems is that there is no standard procedure for public authorities when new systems for greywater reuse are judged or introduced into public. I mean, if you build a building, whatever apartment building or so on, and you want to have a greywater reuse system there, it will. You don't know what are the limits for the produced water. You don't know what are your duties towards public authorities and so on. That's a big problem indeed. And there is also no control whatsoever on the systems built in older buildings. So if you have an apartment building now in Czech, which is already built and people live there, and you introduce greywater reuse system, public authorities don't care at all. So we've seen many or quite some systems in these buildings which are absolutely not working well and are actually maybe danger to public health, to people who live in those buildings. And as I said, a big problem is that irrigation is effectively not possible at this moment with treated water. Now, for technical solutions, we have a number of good examples. I think the Mercedes among them is a case of Botanica, which is a building built by Skanska, so Swedish company, who did very good job in adapting very good technology. You see it here in the picture. It's a very stable, actually German technology, which is there, which is well operated. I will talk about that a little bit later, a little bit later. This is all based on membrane bioreactors, which is the most frequent case. But you can have also less advanced technology. This is actually in my house, to be honest, which is based just on biofilter. which again, if it's operated well and which is if it's designed well, gives perfectly good results comparable with MBRs.
Professor Bartáček, I'm very sorry to remind you about the time.
Okay, how many minutes do I have?
Yeah, we are a little out of time. You have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, then I will have to skip some pictures. I wanted to show some data from these systems, but we can skip it for now. Probably the PowerPoint will be available. I just wanted to stress that, for instance, in these buildings, the quality of water which is produced there is almost drinking water quality. So yeah, you really can have a good, well operating systems. The most frequent problems there are insufficient capacities designed, improper combination with rainwater, which, as I said, you always have enough grey water if you want to reuse it in a household. No sense to combine with rainwater collection system. But if people do, often the quality of water deteriorate. Insufficient disinfection, often not sufficiently operated or sometimes even switched off, and sometimes not sufficient separation from drinking water distribution systems. So the most urgent actions that we suggested is a modification of Water Protection Act to allow irrigation, formulation of standard procedures for public health authorities while evaluating new grey water or old grey water reuse systems, definition of requirements for treated grey water, guidelines for risk assessment, and collection of relevant data on water reuse. Now, this I will skip. Then we also look at the potential of water reuse in the Czech Republic. We had 3 different scenarios, which was one conservative, realistic, and optimistic. Optimistic means that all grey water is reused. Conservative if water is reused only for flushing. And then we calculated for these scenarios how much water can be, for instance, saved in hotels and all sorts of buildings, and also for the whole Czech Republic. So we only in households we can save this way something between 60 and 180 million cubic meters per year. Okay, I will switch this, and the conclusions, I'm sorry for the Czech word here, the main obstacle is inconsistent or missing legislation. We have to define legally grey water, we have to define standards for public authorities, and we have to allow grey water irrigation. And the technical solutions of high quality and reliabilities are of course available, just have to be applied. So thank you for your attention, and I'm sorry if I was a little long.
Professor Bartáček, thank you very much for the presentation. It was, for me, especially very interesting because I'm dealing with the legislation, regulation. I do not see any questions in the Slido. My general comment, I got the impression that Czech Republic is quite restrictive in the legislation. I would call it even not fit for purpose in terms of grey water use.
Yeah, there is, I think, yeah, how to say that? I think there is no there has been no legislation, still not in effect, legislation on grey water reuse. But still in family houses, people were able to apply it, in apartment houses also. The problem is, especially for the investors, that you don't know what to prepare for, you don't know how to design your system to be to comply with the legislation. We are trying to change that, and there are some initiatives working on that, but still some time is needed.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I really appreciate your complex knowledge about the regulatory environment.